The mirror never lied, but it held secrets sharper than glass. In the opulent penthouse overlooking Manhattan, Riley caught her reflection entwined with Claire's, their silhouettes a fleeting confession of forbidden love. By morning, the truth would shatter everything. Riley Kane, 22, stood in the guest room of the Wentworth's sprawling Upper East Side home, her callous fingers tracing the edge of a mahogany dresser. She wasn't supposed to be here, not in this world of crystal chandeliers and tailored suits. She'd grown up in foster homes, her life a patchwork of temporary families and half-packed bags. Until the Wentworths, a childless power couple, adopted her 6 months ago. They called it charity. Riley called it a lifeline. But Claire Wentworth, their radiant 23-year-old daughter, called it something else entirely: fate. The city hummed below, a restless pulse matching Riley's own. She glanced at the mirror again, her short brown hair falling messily over her hazel eyes. She wore her usual defiance, a worn leather jacket, ripped jeans, and a guarded heart. Claire, though, was her opposite: blonde, poised, a vision in silk who moved through this world like she owned it. Yet, in stolen moments, Claire's polished exterior cracked, revealing a woman who loved fiercely and feared just as much. Tonight, the penthouse was alive with the Wentworths' annual gala, a glittering parade of New York's elite. Riley had been told to blend in, but she felt like a smudge on a pristine canvas. Downstairs, Claire laughed with guests, her voice a melody Riley could pick out in any crowd. They hadn't spoken since last night, when Claire's lips had brushed hers in the shadowed library, a kiss that felt like a vow and a betrayal all at once. "Riley, you're late." Margaret Wentworth's voice cut through her thoughts. Margaret, 50, stood in the doorway, her emerald gown as commanding as her tone. She was a titan of finance, her sharp blue eyes missing nothing. "Guests are asking about our new addition." Riley forced a smile. "I'm not much for small talk, Margaret." "It's Mrs. Wentworth," she corrected, her gaze lingering. "You're part of this family now. Act like it." Riley nodded, her stomach twisting. Family. The word felt like a borrowed coat, too heavy and never quite hers. She followed Margaret downstairs, the clink of champagne glasses and murmur of wealth enveloping her. Across the room, Claire met her eyes, a fleeting spark that burned through the crowd. Riley's heart lurched. She wasn't just an adopted daughter here, she was Claire's secret, and the weight of it was crushing. The gala was a performance, and Riley played her part. She smiled at strangers, answered questions about her new life, and dodged the pity in their eyes. But every step brought her closer to Claire, who was now cornered by a young man in a tailored suit, his hand grazing her arm. Riley's jaw tightened. She knew that look, possession disguised as charm. Claire's smile was polite, but her eyes screamed for rescue. "Mind if I steal her?" Riley said, stepping between them with a boldness she didn't feel. The man blinked, surprised, but Claire's grateful glance was worth the risk. "Riley," Claire said, her voice soft but electric. "I was just telling James about the charity auction." "Sounds thrilling," Riley deadpanned, guiding Claire away. Their shoulders brushed, a silent language they perfected over months of stolen glances and whispered promises. In the safety of a quiet corner, Claire's facade faltered. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered, though her eyes betrayed her relief. "People will talk." "Let them," Riley said, her voice low. "I'm tired of hiding, Claire." Claire's breath hitched, her fingers brushing Riley's wrist. "You know why we can't. My parents, they'd never understand." Riley wanted to argue, to demand a future where they didn't have to sneak around like thieves. But the weight of Claire's world, the Wentworth name, the expectations, the suffocating wealth pressed down on them both. Riley wasn't just a foster kid anymore. She was a daughter, at least on paper. And that made their love a scandal waiting to explode. As the night wore on, the gala's glamour faded into a blur of faces and lies. Riley excused herself, slipping into the library where she and Claire had first kissed. The memory was vivid. Claire's trembling hands, the taste of her lip gloss, the way the world had felt right for once. But now, doubt crept in. Could they ever be more than a secret? Would Claire choose her over this life? The door creaked open, and Claire stepped inside, her gown shimmering in the dim light. "You disappeared," she said, her voice a mix of worry and warmth. "Needed air," Riley replied, her eyes tracing Claire's face. "This place, it's not me." Claire crossed the room, her hand finding Riley's. "It's not me either. Not when I'm with you." Their lips met, urgent and desperate, as if time could be persuaded by passion. But the sound of footsteps broke them apart. Margaret's silhouette loomed in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "Claire," she said sharply, "guests are asking for you." Claire froze, her hand slipping from Riley's. "Yes, Mother," she said, her voice steady but her eyes screaming apologies. As Claire left, Margaret's gaze turned to Riley, cold and piercing. "Be careful, Riley," she said. "Some lines aren't meant to be crossed." Riley's heart pounded as the door closed, leaving her alone with the mirror. It reflected a truth she couldn't escape. She was falling for Claire, and it was going to ruin them both. The city skyline glittered like a promise, but Riley felt trapped in a cage of glass and gold. She lay awake in her guest room, the weight of Margaret's warning heavy in her chest. Every creak of the penthouse felt like a judgment, every shadow a reminder of the line she'd crossed with Claire. Morning brought no relief. The Wentworths' home buzzed with staff preparing for another day of perfection. But Riley's world was unraveling. She'd spent months building a fragile trust with Margaret and Henry Wentworth, the man whose quiet demeanor hid a steel-trapped mind. Henry, 52, ran a tech empire, his presence commanding yet distant. He'd welcomed Riley with a reserved kindness, but she knew he saw her as a project, a way to polish their family's image. Claire, though, saw her as home. Riley pulled on her jacket and slipped out before breakfast, needing the chaos of Manhattan to drown her thoughts. The streets were alive with honking taxis and hurried strangers, a stark contrast to the suffocating order of the penthouse. She wandered into a small coffee shop, the kind with chipped mugs and sticky tables, and ordered a black coffee. It was here, months ago, that she'd first met Claire. It had been an accidental spilled latte, a flustered apology, and Claire's laugh, bright and unguarded. They talked for hours, unaware of the worlds dividing them. Claire hadn't mentioned her last name, and Riley hadn't cared. But when the Wentworths adopted her, Riley realized the cruel twist. The girl she'd fallen for was her new sister, at least in name. Her phone buzzed, pulling her back. A text from Claire. "Meet me at the park. Noon. Please." Riley's pulse quickened. She shouldn't go. Every meeting risked exposure. But the thought of Claire's eyes, green, flecked with gold, pleading for her, made refusal impossible. Central Park was a riot of autumn colors, leaves crunching under Riley's boots as she found Claire on a secluded bench. Claire wore a navy coat, her blonde hair tucked under a scarf, blending into the crowd. But to Riley, she was a beacon. "You came," Claire said, her voice soft but urgent. She stood, closing the distance between them. I couldn't sleep after last night. Neither could I, Riley admitted, her hands shoved deep in her pockets to keep from reaching out. Your mom, she knows something. Claire's face paled. She can't. She'd have said more. She'd have. Her voice trailed off, fear replacing her usual confidence. Riley stepped closer, lowering her voice. We can't keep doing this, Claire. Sneaking around, pretending we're just, what? Sisters. Claire flinched, but her hand found Riley's, hidden by the folds of her coat. I don't know how to stop loving you, she whispered. I've tried. The words hit Riley like a wave, warm and devastating. She wanted to kiss her, to promise a future where they could be free. But the park wasn't safe, and neither was their love. A jogger passed too close, and they pulled apart, the space between them aching. We need a plan, Riley said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. If we're going to do this, we can't stay here. Not under their roof. Claire's eyes widened. You mean, leave? Riley nodded, her heart pounding. I've got nothing holding me here except you. But if we stay, they'll tear us apart. Claire's gaze dropped to the ground, her fingers twisting the edge of her scarf. I've never defied them. They've given me everything: school, money, this life. But it's not mine. Not really. Riley reached for her hand. Consequences be damned. Then make it yours. With me. For a moment, Claire's face softened, hope flickering. But then her phone rang, shattering the fragile bubble. She glanced at the screen. Margaret. I have to take this, she said, stepping away. Riley watched her pace, her voice low and obedient as she spoke to her mother. The sight twisted something in Riley's chest. Claire was a bird in a gilded cage, and Riley was asking her to break free. But could she? When Claire returned, her expression was guarded. Mother wants me at a charity lunch. She's suspicious. Asked why I'm not at the penthouse. Riley's jaw tightened. She's watching us. Claire nodded, her eyes glistening. I'll figure something out. I just need time. Time was the one thing they didn't have. That evening, back at the penthouse, Riley overheard Margaret and Henry in the study. She pressed herself against the wall, heart racing as their voices carried. She's trouble, Henry, Margaret said, her tone sharp. I saw the way she looked at Claire last night. It's not right. Henry's voice was calm but firm. She's adjusting, Margaret. Give her time. Adoption isn't easy. It's not about adjustment, Margaret snapped. It's about boundaries. Claire's impressionable, and Riley's unpredictable. Riley's blood ran cold. They didn't know the half of it, but they were close, too close. She slipped away before they could notice, her mind racing. She and Claire needed to act fast, but every step felt like walking on a tightrope. That night, Claire slipped into Riley's room, her face pale but determined. I've been thinking, she said, closing the door. If we're going to leave, we need money. My trust fund, I can access it next month when I turn 24. Riley's eyes widened. That's weeks away. Can we wait that long? We have to, Claire said, her voice trembling but resolute. It's our only shot. They sat on the bed, planning in whispers, their hands intertwined. The future was a gamble, but for the first time, Riley felt hope. They could build a life together, far from the Wentworth's shadow. But as Claire left, a floorboard creaked outside the door. Riley froze, her heart in her throat. Someone was listening. The creak lingered in Riley's mind, a warning etched in silence. She lay awake, the penthouse's opulence mocking her restless heart. By dawn, she was certain someone knew more than they should. Breakfast was a tense affair. Margaret's eyes followed Riley like a hawk, her smile tight as she poured coffee. Henry read his tablet, oblivious or pretending to be. Claire, seated across from Riley, kept her gaze on her plate, her fingers trembling slightly. The air felt thick, every word a potential landmine. "Riley, you're quiet this morning," Margaret said, her tone deceptively light. "Everything all right?" "Fine," Riley replied, forcing neutrality. "Just tired." Margaret's smile didn't reach her eyes. "You should join us at the country club today. It's good for you to be seen with the family." Riley's stomach churned. The invitation was a trap, a way to keep her in sight. "I've got plans," she said, glancing at Claire, who looked up briefly, her eyes pleading for caution. "Plans?" Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Do share." "Just exploring the city," Riley said, her voice steady despite the lie. She needed to meet Claire later, away from this suffocating stage. Margaret's gaze lingered, but she said nothing more. As Riley excused herself, she felt Claire's foot brush hers under the tablier, small, desperate connection. They were running out of time. In the safety of a crowded subway, Riley's thoughts raced. She and Claire had planned to meet at a bookstore in Brooklyn, a place they'd found during one of their secret outings. It was their sanctuary, filled with worn paperbacks and the scent of ink. But every step toward freedom felt like a step toward danger. At the bookstore, Claire was already there, tucked in a corner with a poetry collection. Her face lit up when she saw Riley, but the shadows under her eyes betrayed her fear. "I can't shake the feeling we're being watched," she whispered, pulling Riley into the stacks. "You heard the creak last night, didn't you?" Riley asked, her voice low. Claire nodded, her fingers tightening around the book. It was probably staff. But what if it wasn't? Riley's heart sank. The Wentworths had eyes everywhere, maids, drivers, even the doorman. Privacy was a luxury they couldn't afford. "We need to be smarter," she said. "No more sneaking into each other's rooms. We meet outside. Neutral ground." Claire's eyes glistened. "I hate this. Hiding like we're doing something wrong." "We're not," Riley said fiercely, her hand grazing Claire's cheek. "But they'll make it feel that way." The moment was interrupted by a familiar voice. "Claire." It was James, the man from the gala, standing at the end of the aisle. His smile was too perfect, his presence too convenient. "Fancy running into you here." Riley's fists clenched. "You following us?" James laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just browsing. My family's known the Wentworths forever. I like to keep an eye on family friends." Claire stepped forward, her voice steady. "We're fine, James. Just catching up." His gaze lingered on Riley, assessing. "Good to know. I'll see you at the charity ball, Claire." He left, but the air felt tainted. "He's trouble," Riley muttered, her instincts screaming. "He's reporting back to your parents." Claire's face paled. "He's always been around, hovering. My mother thinks he's a good match." Riley's chest tightened. "And what do you think?" Claire's hand found hers, hidden by the books. I think I'd rather burn it all down than lose you. The words were a spark, igniting Riley's resolve. They spent the afternoon planning, mapping out their escape. Claire's trust fund was their ticket out, but accessing it meant navigating Margaret's scrutiny. They needed allies, someone outside the Wentworths' reach. Riley thought of Sam, a friend from her foster days who now ran a small bar downtown. Sam was loyal, discreet, and owed Riley a favor. That evening, Riley slipped out to meet Sam, leaving Claire to face another family dinner. The bar was a dive, all neon and sticky floors, but it felt like home. Sam, 25, with a buzz cut and a quick grin, slid a beer across the counter. Heard you're living the high life now, he teased. More like surviving it, Riley said, explaining everything: her adoption, Claire, the suffocating secrecy. Sam listened, his face growing serious. You're playing with fire, he said. But if you need a place to crash, I've got a couch. No questions asked. Riley nodded, gratitude warming her chest. We might need more than a couch soon. Back at the penthouse, Claire texted. Dinner was hell. Mother kept asking about you. I lied, but she's not buying it. Riley's heart sank. The walls were closing in, and every lie was a crack in their fragile plan. The next morning, Riley found a note slipped under her door. Written in Margaret's precise handwriting, we need to talk. Study. 10 a.m. Panic surged. Had James said something? Had the creek been Margaret herself? Riley's mind raced, but she had no choice but to face her. In the study, Margaret sat behind a massive desk, her expression unreadable. Riley, she began. I've been generous, haven't I? Giving you a home, future. Riley nodded, her throat tight. Yes, Mrs. Wentworth. Then why? Margaret said, her voice like ice. Do I feel like you're betraying us? Riley's heart stopped. The mirror in the corner seemed to mock her, reflecting a truth she couldn't hide. Riley's pulse thundered as Margaret's words hung in the air. The study felt like a courtroom, the mirror a silent witness to her guilt. She forced herself to meet Margaret's gaze, searching for a lie to save her. Betraying you, Riley said, her voice steadier than she felt. I don't know what you mean. Margaret leaned forward, her fingers steepled. Don't play innocent, Riley. I've seen how you look at Claire. The whispers, the glances. It's inappropriate. Riley's stomach dropped. She opened her mouth to deny it, but Margaret raised a hand. I don't want excuses. I want the truth. Are you involving my daughter in something she'll regret? The question was a blade, sharp and precise. Riley's mind raced. Deny everything, and risk Margaret digging deeper. Admit anything, and lose it all. Claire and I are close, she said carefully. She's been kind to me. That's all. Margaret's eyes narrowed, but she didn't press further. You're here because we chose you, she said. Don't make us regret it. Stay away from Claire outside of family settings. Am I clear? Riley nodded, her throat tight. Yes, Mrs. Wentworth. As she left the study, her legs shook. She needed to warn Claire, but the penthouse felt like a maze of eyes. She texted instead, meet me at Sam's bar. Urgent. Claire's reply was immediate, on my way. Sam's bar was a refuge, its dim lights hiding their fear. Claire arrived, her face pale, her coat pulled tight against the autumn chill. What happened? she asked, sliding into a booth. Your mom knows, Riley said, her voice low. Not everything, but enough. She told me to stay away from you. Claire's hands clenched. She can't control me forever. I'm not a child. She can make our lives hell, Riley countered. We need to move faster. Your trust fund, can you get it early? Claire shook her head. Not without her approval. She's a trustee until I'm 24. Riley cursed under her breath. 3 weeks felt like a lifetime. Then we need another way. Savings. Anything. Claire's eyes lit up. There's a safe in the study. Cash. Jewelry, emergency funds. I know the combination. Riley's heart raced. Stealing from your parents. That's a line we can't uncross. I know, Claire said, her voice trembling but firm. But I'd rather lose them than lose you. The weight of her words settled between them, heavy and real. They spent the next hour planning, their voices hushed. Sam agreed to store anything they took. No questions asked. But as they left the bar, Riley spotted a familiar figure across the street. James. His phone to his ear. His eyes locked on them. He's tailing us, Riley whispered, pulling Claire into an alley. Her heart pounded as they waited, the city's pulse drowning out their fear. James passed by, oblivious. But the close call was a warning. Back at the penthouse, Riley kept her distance, playing the obedient daughter. But every glance from Margaret felt like a trap. Claire, meanwhile, was unraveling. Dinner. She barely spoke, her eyes darting to Riley with a mix of love and panic. Henry noticed, his brow furrowing. Claire, you seem distracted, he said. Just tired, Dad. She lied, her voice thin. After dinner, Claire slipped into Riley's room, her face set with determination. Tonight, she whispered. The safe. We do it now. Riley's stomach twisted. It's too soon. We're not ready. We'll never be ready, Claire said, her eyes fierce. I'm done waiting. Midnight. The penthouse was silent. They crept to the study, Claire's hands shaking as she entered the combination. The safe clicked open, revealing stacks of cash and a velvet box of jewelry. Riley's heart pounded as they filled a small bag, every sound amplified in the stillness. They were almost done when a light flicked on. Henry stood in the doorway, his face a mask of shock. What the hell are you doing? Claire froze, the bag slipping from her hands. Dad. Save it, he snapped, his eyes moving to Riley. I trusted you. Both of you. Riley stepped forward, her voice steady despite her fear. We're leaving, Henry. We don't want to hurt you, but we can't stay. Henry's face hardened. You think you can just walk away? After everything we've given you? It's not about what you've given, Claire said, her voice breaking. It's about what I need. Henry's gaze softened, but only for a moment. Get out, he said. Both of you. Now. They grabbed the bag and fled, the penthouse's grandeur fading behind them. Sam's bar was their only refuge. But as they ran through the city, Riley couldn't shake the feeling that they just lit a fuse. The city swallowed them whole, its neon veins pulsing with possibility and peril. Riley and Claire huddled in the back of Sam's bar, the stolen bag heavy between them. They were fugitives now, their love a crime in the eyes of the Wentworths. Sam slid a whiskey across the counter, his face grim. You two are in deep, he said. Henry Wentworth's not the forgiving type. We had no choice, Riley said, her voice rough. She glanced at Claire, whose face was pale but resolute. The cash and jewelry enough to start over felt like both salvation and a curse. Claire's hand found Riley's under the table. We're free, she whispered, but her eyes betrayed her doubt. Freedom came at a cost, and they just paid it with everything they knew. They spent the night at Sam's cramped apartment above the bar, sleeping fitfully on his couch. By morning, the reality of their choice sank in. The Wentworths wouldn't let them disappear quietly. Margaret's influence reached every corner of the city, and Henry's resources were limitless. They needed a plan, and fast. We head west, Riley said, spreading a map on Sam's kitchen table. Small town, low profile. We can blend in. Claire nodded, but her eyes were distant. They'll look for us. My mother, she won't stop. Then we stay one step ahead, Riley said, her voice fierce. We've got money. We've got each other. Sam interrupted, holding up his phone. You've got bigger problems. Check this. He showed them a news article on his phone. Wentworth heiress missing. Suspected of theft. Claire's face stared back from the screen, alongside Riley's adoption photo. The article hinted at a scandal, painting Claire as a wayward daughter and Riley as a dangerous influence. They're framing us, Claire whispered, her voice trembling. They want us found. Riley's jaw clenched. Then we don't get found. They dyed their hair in Sam's bathroom, Riley's brown to black, Claire's blonde to auburn. They traded their clothes for thrift store finds, shedding their old selves like skin. By noon, they were on a bus to Pittsburgh, the bag hidden in a backpack at their feet. The city shrank behind them, but the weight of their choices didn't. Pittsburgh was a gritty contrast to Manhattan's polish. They found a cheap motel, its flickering sign promising anonymity. Inside, they counted the cash $20,000 and cataloged the jewelry. It was enough for a few months, maybe more if they were careful. But careful wasn't enough when the Wentworths were hunting them. That night, Claire curled against Riley, her breath uneven. Do you ever wonder if we're wrong? She asked. If this is too much to ask of love. Riley's chest tightened. Every day. But then I look at you, and I know it's worth it. Claire's lips found hers, a kiss that held all their fear and hope. For a moment, the world was just them, two hearts against an unforgiving tide. But the moment shattered when Riley's phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. I know where you are. Come home, or I tell them everything. Riley's blood ran cold. James, she said, showing Claire the text. Claire's face hardened. He's bluffing. He can't know. But doubt gnawed at them. They moved the next day, hopping a train to Chicago. The city's vastness offered cover, but every stranger felt like a threat. They rented a tiny apartment under false names, using cash to avoid a trail. Days turned into weeks, each one a tightrope walk between freedom and fear. Claire found work at a bookstore, her charm disarming customers. Riley took odd jobs pretending, deliver anything to keep them afloat. They built a fragile routine, stealing moments of joy in late-night walks by Lake Michigan, their hands intertwined. But the shadow of the Wentworths loomed. One evening, Claire came home pale, clutching a newspaper. Look, she said, pointing to an article. It was a statement from Margaret, pleading for Claire's return, offering a reward. The words were laced with love, but Riley saw the truth, control disguised as care. They're not giving up, Claire said, her voice breaking. What if we can't outrun them? We will, Riley said, pulling her close. We've come too far. But that night, a knock on their door shattered their fragile peace. Riley opened it to find a man in a suit, his face stern. Claire Wentworth? He asked. Riley's heart stopped. She's not here. The man's eyes narrowed. Tell her the Wentworths hired me. They just want to talk. Riley slammed the door, her hands shaking. They were out of time. They needed to run again. But where? And how long could they keep running before love wasn't enough? The knock echoed in Riley's mind like a gunshot. She and Claire packed in silence, their movements frantic but precise. Chicago's skyline loomed outside their window, a reminder that no city was big enough to hide them forever. We can't keep running, Claire said, stuffing clothes into a bag. Her auburn hair fell over her face, hiding the fear in her eyes. They'll always find us. Then we fight, Riley said, her voice fierce. We tell the truth. Our truth. Claire's hand stilled. You mean, go public? Tell the world we're in love. Riley nodded, her heart pounding. They're using their money to control the narrative. We take that away from them. It was a reckless plan, born of desperation, but it felt right. They couldn't outrun the Wentworths' wealth, but they could outmaneuver their secrecy. Riley contacted Sam, who knew a journalist friend, Mia, willing to hear their story. Mia, 30, was a freelancer with a reputation for exposing the elite. She agreed to meet them in Denver, their next stop. The train to Denver was a blur of steel and sleepless nights. Claire clung to Riley, her head on her shoulder as the world sped by. What if this backfires? She whispered. What if they hate us? Then we'll face it together, Riley said, kissing her forehead. No more hiding. Denver was crisp and open, its mountains a stark contrast to the claustrophobia of their past. They met Mia at a quiet cafe, her sharp eyes assessing them over a steaming mug. You're taking on the Wentworths, she said. That's no small thing. You sure you're ready? We don't have a choice, Claire said, her voice steady. They're trying to erase us. Mia listened as they poured out their story: the adoption, the forbidden love, the theft, the chase. She recorded every word, her face unreadable. This could go viral, she said finally. But it'll cost you. The Wentworths will come for blood. Let them, Riley said, her jaw set. We're done running. Mia's article hit the internet 2 days later, a bombshell that lit up social media. Wentworth heiress in love with adopted sister, a tale of secrets and scandal. The headline was brutal, but the story was theirs: raw, honest, and unapologetic. It detailed their love, the Wentworths' control, and their fight for freedom. Comments flooded in, some supportive, others vicious. But the world was listening. The fallout was immediate. Claire's phone buzzed with messages from old friends, some pleading, others condemning. Margaret called, her voice icy through the speaker. You've humiliated us, she said. Come home, and we can fix this. There's nothing to fix, Claire said, her voice trembling but firm. I love her. That's my truth. Margaret hung up, but the silence was louder than words. Riley pulled Claire close, their hearts beating as one. They'd thrown the dice, and now they had to live with the role. They moved to a small cabin outside Denver, rented with the last of their cash. It was simple, far from the penthouse's grandeur, but it was theirs. They spent days rebuilding, Finding work, Claire at a local library, Riley at a mechanic's shop. The world still buzzed with their story, but in the quiet of their cabin, they found peace. One evening, as snow dusted the mountains, Claire found a letter in their mailbox. No return address, just Margaret's handwriting. Inside was a single page: "You've made your choice. We're done." Enclosed was a check for $50. 000 blood money. A final severance. Claire stared at it, tears falling. "This is her way of letting go," she said. "Or controlling me one last time." "Burn it," Riley said, her voice soft but sure. "We don't need her money. We never did." Claire hesitated, then nodded. They lit a fire in the cabin's hearth, the check curling into ash. It was a small act, but it felt like freedom. They kissed as the flames died, their love stronger than the wealth they'd left behind. But the world wasn't done with them. Mia called a week later, her voice urgent. "The Wentworths are suing you for theft. They're claiming you stole more than what was in the safe." Riley's heart sank. "They're lying. We took what we needed, nothing more." "I believe you," Mia said. "But they've got lawyers. You need to fight this." Claire's face hardened. "Then we'll fight. We've come too far to lose now." They hired a lawyer, a scrappy young woman named Lena who worked pro bono. Drawn to their story, Lena was fierce, her belief in them a lifeline. As they prepared for the legal battle, Riley and Claire clung to each other, their love a shield against the storm. The courtroom was a battlefield, its polished wood and stern faces a far cry from the cabin where Riley and Claire had found refuge. They sat side by side, hands clasped under the table, as the Wentworth's lawyer painted them as thieves and opportunists. But Riley saw the truth in Claire's eyes: love, unyielding and pure, worth every fight. The trial was a spectacle, cameras flashing outside the Denver courthouse. Mia's article had turned their story into a cause, with supporters rallying online and protesters waving signs. Love is not a crime. But inside, the Wentworth's power loomed. Margaret sat in the front row, her face a mask of cold fury. Henry was absent, his absence a quiet wound. Lena, their lawyer, was a force, dismantling the Wentworth's claims with precision. The theft accusation hinged on missing jewelry, items Margaret claimed were worth millions. But Lena produced receipts, proving the safe's contents were far less. "This is vengeance, not justice," she told the jury, her voice ringing with conviction. Claire testified, her voice steady despite the weight of her parents' gaze. "I took what I needed to survive," she said. "Not out of greed, but out of love. Riley's my home, not the penthouse." Riley's heart swelled, but fear lingered. The jury's faces were unreadable, and Margaret's influence was a shadow they couldn't shake. When Riley took the stand, she spoke from the gut. "I didn't ask to be adopted," she said. "I didn't ask for their world. But I found Claire, and I'd rather lose everything than lose her." The courtroom fell silent, the truth a weight no one could ignore. Closing arguments came, and Lena's words were a rallying cry. "This isn't about theft. It's about two women fighting for their right to love. Don't let wealth silence them." The jury deliberated for 2 days, each hour a lifetime. Riley and Claire waited in their cabin, the mountains a quiet witness to their fear. They cooked together, laughed over burnt toast, and made love under the stars, clinging to every moment as if it could be their last. When the verdict came, it was a shockwave, not guilty. The courtroom erupted, supporters cheering. But Margaret's face was stone. She approached them outside, her voice low. You've won nothing, she said. You'll always be running. Claire met her gaze, unflinching. We're not running anymore. We're living. Margaret walked away, her silhouette fading into the crowd. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was closure. The Wentworths' grip was broken, their power no match for truth. Riley and Claire returned to their cabin, the world quieter now. The lawsuit had drained their savings, but they had each other. They built a life in Denver, small but real. Claire taught poetry workshops at the library, her passion lighting up the room. Riley opened a motorcycle repair shop, her hands finding purpose in grease and steel. They were no longer the heiress and the foster kid, just two women in love, carving out a future. One evening, as spring bloomed, Claire pulled Riley onto their porch. The mountains glowed pink, the air sweet with possibility. I wrote something for you, Claire said, handing her a notebook. Riley opened it, her breath catching at the words. You are my rebellion, my refuge, my home. In every mirror, I see you broken, eternal. Tears blurred her vision as she pulled Claire close, their lips meeting in a kiss that held every struggle, every triumph. They didn't have wealth or approval, but they had love, a force stronger than any empire. The world might judge, but in their cabin, under the vast Colorado sky, they were enough. The mirror, once a betrayer, now reflected a truth worth fighting for. They were free, together, and that was everything. Years later, their story faded from headlines, but it lived in the quiet moments, a shared glance over coffee, a hand held in the dark. They'd faced a world that tried to break them and emerged whole. And in every reflection, they saw not just themselves, but a love that had rewritten their stars.